Hi, it's Mike Pangia. Today's project is going to be Italian meatballs in the most traditional way. Now, this particular method and this recipe that I use is a composite of all of the best techniques, ingredients that I learned from my dearly departed mother and from the mothers of my Italian friends growing up in Brooklyn, and from some of my aunts. Those of you in the Midwest that didn't understand that, that's aunts. In Brooklyn we say ants, like the insect. I'm sorry, that's just how it is. At any rate, it's a composite of the best ideas and the best techniques of several great cooks that I experienced in my life. I hope you like it. Let's get started. You'll need to grate about 3/4 of a cup of Parmesan cheese. I suppose you could get the pre-grated kind in a container, but I recommend you try the real thing. An Italian imported Parmesan. The sharpness is a beautiful thing. You may notice that I don't actually measure. I'm guessing that's about anywhere between 3/4 and a cup of grated Parmesan cheese. The next thing I'm going to not measure with you is unflavored plain breadcrumbs, and the measurement I use is a pile about the same as the pile of cheese I have. This is the amount I'm using for 2 pounds of meat. Next, we need to mince up some garlic. You've probably seen my technique of slamming the cloves with a knife to crack the skin to make them easier to peel. I'm using 4 cloves of garlic for 2 pounds of meat. And to Italians, garlic is a necessary ingredient in any savory dish. The way the Pope uses holy water, Italians use garlic. Now we can just toss the minced garlic into the pile with the breadcrumbs and the grated cheese. Next is some fresh parsley. Now I just saw a chef say that he uses the stems to add flavor, and I'm sorry, I don't. So when I cut the leaves off, I try to cut through the stem where all the leaves will be free, where they fall free. I don't know if you can see that, but basically I'm separating the leaves from the main stem. Now we'll cut up the parsley. Chop it. And in it goes with our other ingredients. Incidentally, this is my own garden parsley that I grow in a pot in my bedroom. The stems aren't going to give us any flavor, but they will go into my compost, so they won't be wasted. Now for the meat. I'm using a pound package of ground beef. Personally, I look for the one with the higher fat content. This one is 70% lean, which is a nice way of saying it's 30% fat. If you want to be healthier, I suppose you could get the 10% fat, 90% lean version. The danger of doing that is it makes the end product dry. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to mash these together with our hands. And this is a good time to introduce a secret ingredient that I learned from one of my friend's mothers who was fresh from Sicily, and she did it this way. She used just a little bit of water to help the mixing, the consistency, and it'll add moisture later when they're being cooked also. So here we go, we mix it all up. Looks good, I think that's pretty well mixed. And now we're going to add all that stuff that we prepared before. The cheese, the breadcrumbs, the parsley. Also, we better remember to put the salt in now. A good healthy pinch and another. If you forget the salt, it comes out very flat. You really need it. However, the amount you're putting in is not so terrible that it's going to raise your blood pressure. Use your discretion. Okay, now we've got that dry stuff in. We're going to mix it all in again. Mix it all together. Okay. Now, just from my experience and judgment, it's still a little dry. So I want to put another squirt of water in. There we go. You don't want to make it mushy, so you have to be careful when you're adding the water. The last thing we're going to add is an egg for each pound. Oh, here's a little trick you may have seen before. I dropped a shell in there. I'm going to take another shell and pick it. Well, that's not working today, that magic trick, so I'm just going to go in with my fingers and grab it. Okay. So 2 eggs. Stir them up well. And in they go. More mixing by hand. Get the eggs mixed in well. You know, I'm thinking of a way to describe the consistency of this. It's kind of like a bread dough at this point, just a little bit softer than a typical bread dough. You can probably get an idea of the consistency by watching me squeeze it and move it around. But that's what you're looking for. It's moist, but not mushy. Now wet your hands and start rolling. You want a meatball that's about 1.5 inches in diameter. If it's any bigger, it might not cook through. If it's any smaller, it'll dry out when it's cooking. Try to make them all the same size so they cook evenly. Wetting your hands helps. All rolled and ready for the next step. Okay kids, we're getting near the end. it's time to brown these. And one little trick that I like to do is when I'm putting it into the hot oil to fry it, is wiggle it around a little bit before I let it loose for the bottom, so that the bottom of it can fry up a little before it touches the pan. This helps to keep it from sticking. Okay, here we go. Wiggle it around till I see it starting to bubble, and I can let it loose. While you're doing this, you keep going under them to keep them from sticking, turning them, moving them around so that they brown evenly. Once they're browned, scoop them out and let them drain on a paper towel. At this point, the old Italian nonnies would dump the meatballs into the big pot of sauce they have on the stove for a mutually beneficial relationship. The meatballs flavor the sauce, and the sauce flavors the meatballs. What a good deal. One other thing I want to mention about these meatballs is they freeze great. You can put them in a storage bag in your freezer, take them out as you need them, take out 1 or 2 or 3 as you need them, and thaw them out and use them in your sauce. They're really meant to go with a red sauce. If you're not going to make your own sauce from scratch, you can use a jar sauce, perish the thought. But it's okay, some of them are edible. You get the jar sauce simmering, throw in a couple of your thawed out meatballs, and they will flavor it and make the sauce even better. That's about it. If you like what you've seen, hit subscribe if you haven't already done it. Been fun. Thanks for watching. See you again next time.